Alright, so we are going to start with a chapter on communication today. And when we talk about communication, we talk about firstly effective communication. So what is effective communication? Effective communication is that communication which gets the desired response. So what you need to understand is that communication is basically the transmission of message from the sender to the receiver using a medium, and it is effective only when there is the desired response. For example, if I'm asking someone to stand up and the person understands the message and actually stands up, then that communication is effective. When we talk about business organizations, we are talking about things like internal communication. Now, this communication can be in the form of written messages, it can be in the form of memos, text messages, it can be in the form of spoken communication. People are not islands. They need to communicate with one another within the organization as well. This is the fire exit. So when you're telling them that this is the fire exit, this is the internal communication. The second type of communication in the organization is external communication. External communication, of course, is with the stakeholders that are outside the organization. You send an order to your suppliers, you send a report to the government, or you make an advertisement. So even that is external communication. External communication must be done in the right form because it creates a good image for the company, and also it ensures that the right things and the right materials are procured at the right time. So when someone writes a letter to the tax authority, a business contacts its customers, and it has to be effective, whether it is internal or external, in order to achieve the objectives. Please keep in mind, communication is important because it helps you achieve its objectives. If it is not helping you achieve your objective, or if it is communication for its own sake, then it is not good business communication. All right. When we talk about communication, then we talk about one-way communication and two-way communication. So in one-way communication, what happens is that one party is active, the other is passive. The other is just a passive receiver, receptor of information. Also in advertisement, when an advertisement is made, the communication is one way. Then there is two-way communication. What is two-way communication? In two-way communication, there is a response from the receiver. What is the advantage of two-way communication? Clarity. If there is two-way communication, the receiver can always clarify the message and get the message exactly as to what the sender wants to say. If there is a confusion, you can ask a question and you can get it. And there's also clarity on the part of the sender that the message that he has sent has been received and actually understood. Okay. Now, please do differentiate between this and the methods of communication. Method involves technology. When you are talking about a method, the method involves the technology or the means of communication. So when we are talking about method, we are talking about mainly three types, but there are more. Verbal, the use of words. Written communication, of course, is in the form of notice board, letters, information technology. Visual communication in the form of pictures, graphs, pictograms, pie charts. All these pictures have the unique ability of summarizing and presenting a lot of information in one go. And of course, bosses, they do not have the time to read a long report, so they prefer these pictorial presentations because they give a lot of information in a very summarized form. Which type of communication will you choose will depend upon a lot of things, and this is a very important concept when it comes to analyzing the usefulness of a particular means of communication. Please keep in mind, when you are doing the analysis, as I've said over and over again, cost, productivity, and revenue. These are the three things. Keep in mind when choosing a method of communication: speed of communication, cost of communication, message detail, leadership style. So if the message is very detailed, even though it is less costly to talk on the phone or less costly to talk verbally, and there are other methods, but still you will prefer the written form of communication. For very long and involved messages, please, you will have to use written communication despite the advantages of telephonic communication, let's say. All right. Also keep in mind, the method of communication chosen or the type of communication chosen depends upon the style of management. So some managers are averse to giving things in writing. Then the receiver. Who is the target receiver? If there is a target receiver, which is the whole country, you cannot have two-way communication with them. You will have to do advertising and stuff like that. How important is the written record? Okay, yeah, you can get the clarity. You can get clarity in telephonic two-way communication or verbal communication or oral communication. But if the message is of a certain nature that it may be referred back to in a court of law, then you are going to use written communication. And if the importance of the feedback, for example, is a lot, then you may need to use two-way communication. Okay, there are many advantages of verbal communication as well. It gives the advantage of immediate feedback. It is quick. It is reinforced with body language. Please do keep in mind, body language is a very important thing. But there are some disadvantages. In big meetings, it is not possible for everyone to talk, and it takes more time. All right, and in most verbal communication, written records are difficult to maintain. Likewise, there are letters, memos, which memos are now used less, but reports, yes. Notices, text messaging is being used a lot. WhatsApp is being used a lot. Email, which was not considered official form of communication until 20 years ago, has become very standard, formal, official means of communication, and there are many advantages to this. You can always take out a hard copy evidence of the written communication. Certain meetings which have complicated details, minutes of the meeting and other things need to be taken down. Copies of these messages can be made and they can be circulated if circulation is needed. And if this written communication is done electronically, then it also gives the advantage of being quick, just like verbal communication. But there are disadvantages. What about direct feedback? Not always there. How do you check that the message has actually been received and read? What about when the language used is technical and difficult for the receiver? So these are some of the disadvantages which you will come across. Then there's visual communication. As I said, visual communication has certain characteristics. It also has certain advantages. Visual communication is a very attractive and appealing method of communication to the receiver. Some people are just good visual learners. So people who absorb information visually, for them this has a particular advantage. Written messages can be used along with these pictures to supplement the message and to reinforce it. But again, how to get the feedback on this kind of communication, that is a little difficult. And if you are using charts, graphs and pie charts, then the other person should be well versed in using these tools. If he can understand them, and if he can interpret them, then this is useful for him. Otherwise, it is not. Please keep in mind that in every organization, you cannot make formal communication channels. Only there will be informal communication between people. And through this informal communication, a lot of things are expressed. And this can be used by the organization to find out what the people are thinking. Alright, so these are some of the important points that you will come across in the chapter on communication. Please do read this chapter carefully, and we'll be back with the next video. Thank you very much.